podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to a very special episode of the Rantcast. It's the summer, and that means that for a certain subsection of the population, transfer speculation becomes an all-consuming nightmare dedicated to ripping every waking moment away from you. But if you're not one of those people, but you do kind of want to know what's been going on with United and transfers so far this summer, we thought we would do the public service of getting someone who actually knows a little bit about what's been happening on the line. So we decided to talk to someone who will be a familiar voice to long-term Manchester United podcast fans. Tom Coast, formerly of the Can They Score podcast and currently running things at Sport Witness. I don't mean running the whole of that. I just mean like running the things that he runs. How you doing, Tom?
I'm good, mate. Thank you for having me. I haven't done a podcast in a while, but hopefully we'll get back into the swing of things fairly quickly. But yeah, thank you for having me.
So, I think the general tone, as is always the case at almost exactly this point in the summer of United fans when it comes to transfers, is one of exasperation and confusion that not more has happened by now. Today, as we're recording this on Monday night. The plan is to get it out on Tuesday because these things change so quickly. But as of today, Gestafute Inc., well, Duncan Castles wrote an article saying that Mourinho is really fed up with Ed Woodward. Are you surprised that came out today?
Not really. I mean, we all knew from a long time ago that towards the end of the season that Mourinho gave his transfer targets to Ed Woodward. I'm assuming it was a very nicely put together Excel spreadsheet with all the names of the players he wanted and the top targets and the bottom targets, and if he could get the top ones, great. If he couldn't, then move on to the next one. I think we've seen one of the top targets probably slip through our fingers because of a pesky transfer ban. But you know, people always want transfer done early. Managers want transfers done early because then they can get the pre-season sorted, get the team chemistry up to where he wants it. And obviously that would be an ideal scenario. Obviously, that's not how it works. Some teams don't want to sell, so obviously they stand their ground. We saw that with the Perisic situation. And it's just a case of, well, there's 2 months of this left. Unfortunately, it feels like it's been going on for a very, very long time. But the transfer window officially opened on the 1st of July, and we are now, I believe, the 3rd. So 2 days have actually gone officially of the transfer window. And yes, some clubs, Manchester United signed Victor Lindelof early on. Manchester City bought Bernardo Silva pretty much before or towards when the season ended. Clubs do get stuff done early, but obviously that's ideal, but that's not, life isn't ideal. So we've just got to, patience is key. I'm sure Ed Woodward's not just sat around twiddling his thumbs going, well, we'll just wait and see what happens. I'm sure he's working hard. And even if Mourinho is exasperated, as Duncan Castles says, it's just the way it is. You know, he's just going to have to wait. And yeah, that's about it.
I wonder how exasperated he'll get, because obviously, like, it got nasty at Chelsea, didn't it? When he got really exasperated. Ed wrote something for United Rant about that it is actually it's a genuinely, with some managers you wouldn't be genuinely worried. With Mourinho, I don't know. There's a genuine slight worry if he's briefing Castles at this point.
I'd like to say, well, obviously he is a well-known José Mourinho mouthpiece. Duncan Castle, that is, not Ed. No,
I like it the other way around.
But it's whether what he says is because a lot of clubs are getting exasperated. Chelsea, Conte is apparently getting annoyed at how slow things are going at Chelsea. Every manager this is a trend. The first, it's because it feels like it's been going on for so long. It feels like all this time has passed. to get all the teams sorted. Every manager's getting annoyed. Maybe not Ronald Koeman, who's actually signing about 17 players, including Michael Keane just now. It's been made official, which Manchester United get a nice £7.5 million for. I think it's just an easy article to write. It might be true, it might not be, but you've got to think of these things that this is the stuff that people click on. It's negative press is a lot of time what people click on, because obviously then it reflects that mentality then passes on to the fans, who then get annoyed, and then then they're more likely to click on good news later on if something nice happens, because then the anger is subsided and everyone looks really good. So it's a very easy. As I said, that could be the case, but it's also a very easy article to write. 2 days into the transfer window, Mourinho is not very happy with how things are going. But if tomorrow we sign, Alvaro Morata or Ivan Perisic comes out of nowhere, then everyone's happy and Mourinho's happy, and that's just the way things work. It's all about battle for clicks and selling papers, and good news sells, but good news isn't all. Good news can only sell so much, so you need a bit of bad news to counteract that. And it's just, that's just how it works.
The game is the game, is that what you're saying?
Exactly, yes. The game is the game, and everyone plays it.
Okay, so let's talk about some specifics. When we finished up the end of the season podcast, actually, this might have happened after that, but there was a time when I'd been told by people who had no reason to lie to me and every reason to know this stuff, that the Griezmann thing was a thing that was happening. But United apparently never wanted him. And as far back as February, he came off the list. How do we stand on that?
How do we stand on that? Well, everyone was pushing for the Griezmann deal to happen. Obviously, he's a very good player. We want the best of the best at Manchester United. That's how things work. But it's a very easy way to say we never wanted him anyway when you can't get him. Now, we all knew that there was this transfer ban that could get in the way. At one point, there was this quiet confidence in the Spanish press that the ban would be lifted, much like Real Madrid was. And, that would give the green light for Antoine Griezmann, who was 6 out of 10 sure that he would go to Manchester United. There was a 6 out of 10 chance. But that
was before the Europa League final, right?
Yes, that was before the Europa League final, and everyone thought, well, if Manchester United win the Europa League final, that 6 could become an 8 or a 9 or whatever. Because obviously Champions League football for a player of Griezmann status is something that he'll want at his stage in his career. He's not that young anymore. I mean, he's still 26, but he's not a youngster. So he wants, the best of the best and as much money as possible and blah, blah, blah. But annoyingly for Manchester United, this ban was upheld, and that meant that Atletico Madrid couldn't register players. They could sign players, but they couldn't register them to play them until January, which meant that if Griezmann left them at this stage, they would be able to sign a replacement like Diego Costa, but that replacement would not be able to play for them until January. So that left a big gaping gap in their squads. At which point, Griezmann, he made that very clear in his messages afterwards, was that I can't really leave Atletico under these circumstances. And it's something that I kind of predicted, and people thought, well, it's the pay the release clause and there's nothing they can do about it. But at the end of the day, a lot of the time, a lot of people don't take into account the will of the player. Now, the player was taken from Real Sociedad by Atletico, and it's at Atletico that he became this poster boy for Puma, and it's became the poster boy for France thanks to the Euros, and it's because of Atletico that he is where he is now. Now, turning his back on that in this situation would have not gone down well with Atletico fans, and even when he did the 6 out of 10 reference to move to Manchester United, Atletico fans weren't happy the fact that he was talking about a possible transfer so soon after the end of the season, and with the transfer ban still being a speculation. And then he said that he wanted to leave to win. He thought this was the best time to leave to win trophies. This was in a press conference about the launch of his book, because obviously at 26 years old you already have an autobiography if you're a footballer. So he said, this is the time for me to leave and do all my to win trophies and go to a next step of my career. And obviously this really annoyed Atletico fans. And I think that had he actually left, then that would have been the end of his status as the, he's not a legend, but, a favoured, put it in Football Manager terms, favoured personnel / icon. And that would have been the end of that status. And you don't want to leave through the back door. You want to leave through the front door as the kind of, so that all the fans thank you for your services and all that. So I think that's why he stayed. Now, he also renewed his contract, which was always going to happen. Atletico, as a thank you, will have given him an extra money, but the release clause stayed the same. Now, the release clause is 100 million euros, which is what Manchester United were prepared to pay over the course of his 5-year deal, according to multiple reports. So that would have been 20 million a year. Now, that's stayed the same, which leads me to believe that next season, when they don't have this transfer ban issue, I think Griezmann will leave. He'll be 27, signs a 5-year contract somewhere else. That gives him, up to he's 32, at which point, he reevaluates everything, or gets a new contract at 30 and so on. So I think it's still a good time for him to leave next season. Just has to wait a little bit longer. And he's a Manchester United fan. I think José Mourinho wants him. I think it probably will happen. As for we didn't never want it anyway, it's always a very easy thing to say. When reports before the transfer ban was upheld was that Manchester United were looking into it. And it's only after that the report of we never wanted him anyway came out. So that's very much, I think, to appease the fans, and which a lot saw straight through, because we're not idiots.
I wonder, it's interesting, you talk about maybe signing him maybe next summer. I mean, some people have even talked about in January. It seems so unlikely that a player of that calibre is going to move in January.
I don't see it.
But yeah, the even the idea of him coming next season, do you think that United's transfer plan has, apart from the bit of the plan which says sign Griezmann with like arrows pointing at it, apart from that bit of the plan, do you think the plan dramatically changed this summer when he became unavailable? Do you think they're looking at players they wouldn't have looked at if they could have signed him?
Well, it's hard to say, because the Morata rumblings were already there when Griezmann, there was where does Mourinho see Griezmann playing? Now, Griezmann was originally a left winger, or a winger. He used to play across the front three. Then he became more of a sports striker, and then he became kind of a striker at Atletico Madrid. And you've got to think that he's such a versatile player. You've got to think, where would he want to play? And would he want to play Mkhitaryan on the right, then play Griezmann behind a striker, much like Griezmann did at the Euros, where he played behind a target man like Giroud, which worked very well up until the final. And so it's hard to, obviously, without having Mourinho's, as I said, a spreadsheet of all the players that he wants in front of us, it's very difficult to see what he wants. I think the general idea is that Rashford is not a left winger, and I don't think that Rashford should stay as a left winger. I think Rashford should be moved centrally, and I think with Zlatan leaving, we'll probably see a lot more of that. Now, we're going to have to replace Zlatan, but that player is probably not going to be the big target man that Zlatan was, if the reports about Morata are true. Now, would you then have Martial on the left with Perisic, which is apparently the number one target for Mourinho there? Does that mean that then Griezmann would play behind the new striker? It was always said 4 players, which we assume would be a centre-back, some kind of striker, a forward and a midfield, a winger, versatile winger and a midfielder. But that can easily change. We could see 5-6 players. Some reporters are saying that it could be 5-6 players because of needs. And Manchester United are well known for their lack of midfielders. It's getting better, but there's still a bit of a deficiency in that department, especially with Carrick. Yes, he signed a new contract, but how much is he going to play next season? And that leaves really Fellaini, a fan favourite, Ander Herrera, and Paul Pogba, and then you can maybe play Wayne Rooney if he stays.
Daily Blind, I guess. If you're desperate, so, but Mourinho's never done that.
No, so there is going to be a need, which people want Fabinho, the ideal. Well, fanboys want Fabinho. No. Sorry, no, I said I wouldn't do it, but I did do it. And Nemanja Matic is the apparent, 40 million target. So,
all right. So let's break this down. Let's start with the player that you mentioned first. The story of the summer, I guess, since Griezmann fell off the radar. Alvaro Morata, I guess, does that count as a Galactico signing? I'm not sure it does. It's
well, it's a sub-Galactico, if we're going to put it that way, because he's the backup for Benzema at Real Madrid.
It's Solar Systemo.
So I personally, I've never been a big fan of Benzema. That some people may crucify me for this. I'm quite glad he's not part of the front squad. I think the front squad works far better without him. But that's a different matter altogether. But I always thought that Morata should be the striker at Real Madrid. Obviously, Benzema works well. He's very happy to feed the likes of Cristiano Ronaldo for goals. So I think that Morata is a good signing. I think a lot of people are very sceptical about it, at the fact that he has never been a out-and-out prolific striker. I mean, last season he outscored Benzema coming off the bench, which says a lot about what he is capable of doing. But he's never been that consistent. Even at Juventus, he was never, 30-goal a season striker.
He was Tom. He was never a 10-goal a season striker at Juventus.
No, but he scored important goals. He helped them reach the Champions League final. He turned up. It's going to make saying he's the Fellaini of strikers, but that's not what I was going to say. Turns up when he's needed the most. But no, I think he's a very good player. I think Manchester United could do well with him. Now the problem is, like most players in the transfer window these days, because of the market, is he worth €90 million, which is what Real Madrid want? Money's never really been an issue for Manchester United these days. Anyway, thanks to all our paint sponsors. But he's, Manchester United apparently want to pay €70 million. There's this €20 million gap that Real Madrid don't want to budge from. That's obviously what's being said in Spain, but also in Spain it's been said it's going to happen in the next 48 hours, and that was 2 weeks ago. So the time frame in Spain has always been in the next few hours, and in the next few hours can mean hours, days, weeks, and sometimes it happens that in the next few hours it turned into a month or so. So it's very difficult to know whether or not this is actually going to happen. My gut feeling is that Morata was second on the list behind Griezmann. That's how I see it. A lot of people will disagree and say they're not the same type of player, blah, blah, blah. But that's my view of it, is that pushing for Griezmann was the main key at €100 million, which is a fee that no one would have really batted an eyelid at. It's his release clause. He's he's an incredibly marketable player. And no one would have been angry about spending €100 million. But with Morata, because of his status at Real Madrid, because of the fact that he's always been, he's never been as prolific as other strikers, there's this stigma that sticks with him that, he's not worth the money. But you've also got to think that he's still quite young and still has plenty of time to develop. Mourinho clearly believes in him. He's the one who gave him his debut at Real Madrid, as far as I'm aware. I think that's correct. And he clearly trusts the player. Now, obviously, then it's up to the fans to trust the manager, which, that's a completely different matter altogether.
Is there any doubt in your mind that this is a real link and a real story, and it's like people are actively working
I believe it's being worked on, yes. I think it's too much. There's, in the transfer window, we all know the old saying, there's no smoke without fire. Now, this has gone on for too long for it to not, in my view, this has gone on for too long for it to not be a story. I believe Manchester United are interested, and the fact that, other clubs like Chelsea also wanted him shows that he is a talented player. See, Chelsea has since kind of turned their mind to Romelu Lukaku, but at £100 million, which is what Everton apparently want, I just definitely stay away from that. But it's too much is happening for it to not be a story, basically. And I believe that whether it happens or not, because it's being reported so much, people think it will happen. But anything can happen in the transfer window. It's an incredibly tense part of the season. We saw it with, I think we've seen it with, not the best example, but Fabio Borini going completely off Manchester United's topic 2 seconds. Fabio Borini, as far as the Italian press was concerned, was going to Lazio. Lazio wanted him. Lazio had been tracking him for 4 years. And, they wanted him. Sunderland were prepared to pay to let him go because they were relegated, to take the money off the wage bill. And one morning, AC Milan turned up, says, no, we want him. They paid the money Sunderland wanted, and he went to AC Milan, and Lazio were kind of left, well, where does that leave us? So now they've had to turn their attention elsewhere. But anything can happen. Some deals take 2-3 weeks to work out, and some take a matter of hours. And so until it's done, there's no way of saying it is going to happen. Anything that I know about any transfer, some information always goes on an article in Sport Witness. I never hold any information to myself because, well, that defeats the point of being a journalist. And unless obviously I'm told not to use it, that's a completely different matter. But until it happens, you've just got to wait. And as excruciating as it is, because as well as working in the transfer market, I'm first and foremost a fan of football, and it's very much in the same boat as every other Manchester United fan out there, waiting for transfers to happen. So, yeah.
So, talking of there being no smoke without fire, which I think the transfer market is the arena in which it's one of life's arenas where actually sometimes there's loads of smoke without fire.
Yes, of course.
You guys are really good to getting to the root of that and putting out the fire. And there was a brilliant, I can't remember who tweeted it, but it was something about it's Christmas Day, the kids come downstairs, there's beautiful presents everywhere. Santa's been, Sport Witness kick the door in and go, there's no Santa Claus, you idiots, your mum and dad bought it.
I think it was there was that. I did made a reference to it in something similar in a Raja Nainggolan article where everyone got excited because the BBC said that Raja Nainggolan was one step closer to signing for Manchester United, when in fact the newspaper said that Mourinho had apparently called him. While he's on holiday, Mourinho does not call people, I'm pretty sure. When Mourinho's on holiday, he's on holiday. But Mourinho had apparently called Nainggolan to offer him a contract, 7.5 million euros a year, beautiful contract, more than what Roma were prepared to pay. But in the same article, it said that that he'd said no, but obviously BBC, and he wanted to stay at Roma, but obviously that doesn't click. So get the clicks. So BBC completely ignored that, and this is in their gossip column, which I would not recommend reading.
That's fair then. It's kind of more fair if it's in their gossip column.
Yeah. But in it, I said that this is what Sport Witness do. We go around on the beaches kicking kids' sand castles that 12-year-olds are really proud of, and we also go to the nephew's birthday party, pop the balloons, and we'll blow out his candles. That's kind of the thing that we do. We just kind of find any kind of bit of hope that fans have and try. Well, that's what people think we do. We don't. We want, we would, in an ideal world, we want everything to be right, and I mean, it makes our job easier, but.
To clarify for people, the kind of USP of Sport Witness is that you're looking a lot of the stories that get reported in the English media. You'll see kind of sources in Italy and that sort of thing. You're looking at the source material in its original language, and kind of passing the rumours that way, right? Passing
the rumours that way, and obviously. I'm not going to criticise anyone and do their job, but sometimes things get mistranslated. I sometimes mistranslate things. It happens. But sometimes things, Chinese whispers and things get distorted, and, we're here to clarify it. But a lot of the time it's just trying to work out whether this makes sense or not. Because a lot of the time you'll see, for example, today, I saw a brief mention in Gazzetta dello Sport in Italy, about Tottenham being interested in Steven Nzonzi, Sevilla's defensive midfielder. Now, he's a defensive midfielder. This is probably the last position, unless they're planning on selling someone, it's the last position they need to spend 40 million euros on. They have Victor Wanyama, they've got Moussa Dembele who can play in that role, they've got Eric Dyer who can play that role when Vertonghen and Alderweireld are both fit. So, these are the kind of things that we try and look at, and because a lot of places will just report the story and not kind of put two and two together and see that it's probably nonsense. Now, it could be that they are interested, and we always do mention that, we'll keep an eye out to see if anything does change in the near future. But a lot of the time, a club will be thrown into the mix just to spice things up and put pressure on a club. For example, Juventus wants Steven Nzonzi. In the same article, it said that Steven Nzonzi negotiations with Juventus had stalled. All of a sudden, Tottenham are interested. Now, someone reads that and, oh, no, they're interested. That could be the agent saying to Gazzetta, oh, yeah, Tottenham are interested. Put that in, and then Juventus will see that and go, oh, we need to speed things up. It's all part of a game. Agents talk a lot. Agents, they receive a lot of bad press. Some of them are very honest, and will give newspapers the correct information, but some of them will just play their little game. And if things stall, you can always spice things up and make people a bit more desperate for that signing. And because Premier League clubs are also very rich, so even throwing the name of Everton in there kind of mixes things up because they can pay release clauses with their money. Leicester are another example. Roma are interested in a player, but Leicester have been apparently interested because they could outpower Roma's financial spending because they have more money. So even the likes of Leicester are teams that get thrown into the mix just to
speed things along. Just to speed things along, and just to get people excited and shows that that's just how it works. So if it's a recurring thing, I think that it becomes a bit more of a story, but sometimes names are just chucked in there, and that's what we try and clear out. Talking of stories that are recurring, a thing happened for like 3 days and then went away. And as somebody that reads stuff in the foreign press, what did you make of the whole bizarre Cristiano Ronaldo fiasco, where he desperately wanted to leave Madrid until Perez went, "No, don't leave Madrid," and he was like, "Oh, all right, I don't want to leave anymore."
Every time Ronaldo has a hissy fit, if you want to put it that way, Manchester United are automatically linked because it is the club where he grew up, became the player he is today, and obviously became even better at Real Madrid. Well, he did become better at Real Madrid, but Manchester United are always an easy one for these kind of... Gareth Bale's another example. As soon as Gareth Bale is slightly unhappy, slightly injured, or slightly doesn't play more than 4 games in a row, Manchester United are thrown into the mix because, well, they have the money to be able to buy these players. This time it was a bit more... It seemed a bit like there was a bit more to it, but was there really? It's always easy to glorify things and make them sound more spectacular than they really are. And as soon as... Because Cristiano Ronaldo was out with Portugal squad, he wasn't able to, to have a sit down with Perez and all that. And I'm sure that it took 3 days, as you said, 3-4 days of absolute craziness. That gives you about the time of Jorge Mendes to get up to speed of what the accusations are, get the right people, sit down, have a chat, take a couple of naps, go back, have some more discussions, and 3-4 days later it's all sorted and everything's fine.
Yeah.
It's very it's hard. It's very hard to say, to sit here and say that nothing happened because these journalists put a lot of work, and it could very well be that someone it definitely is the case that someone has told them that such and such, that Ronaldo did want to leave and this time it was real. But obviously people react. We all overreact when things happen, and then calm down and realise that maybe it's not the end of the world. Like losing a game of FIFA, you get very angry, and then after a while you go, I'll just play it again. It's just all these things that when a journalist says, when I say a journalist, someone who is employed by a big company like the Independent and the BBC, when someone says, I have been told that, they will not make that up because their credibility and it does reflect their employer. And so they will have been told something. Whether that information at that time is probably correct, or depending on the source, obviously, but people like the BBC and Independent and tend to have good sources. But at that moment in time, that information is probably correct. Now things change. As I've said before, things change. And then you can always go back and find that old tweet. And you can ridicule that person, but at the same time, what they were told was probably right at the time, and things have changed since.
Yeah.
But people don't see that, and it's a very vicious circle. And I do commend a lot of the journalists on there who receive a lot of abuse and trolls on Twitter and all that stuff, and it's not nice. You put yourself in their shoes. I received the odd. One of the quotes I've been given, someone said about me is in my bio on Twitter if you want to go see it. But I won't. This is a family-friendly podcast, but I won't put it. It's in my bio. But I receive stuff like that. I'm not in the same position as the Dan Rones and all those people thing. But I receive stuff, and all I do is tend to pass the information along. But people don't shoot the messenger and all that. But the messenger sometimes is easier to shoot than the actual person. So that information they are given tends to be correct at that time. Things change, and the stuff with Ronaldo probably was the case. He probably got all this news about the tax and all that stuff and was absolutely fuming, said, this is it, I want to leave, this is probably the best time for me to leave. And then things calmed down. He spoke to a few people, probably his teammates said, no, don't leave, and he went, okay, I won't leave, and that's it. And and he may also leave. He may also all of a sudden someone make a bid, someone would just say yes, and then he gets. As I said, anything can happen. And I'm meant to be here and try and calm everyone, but at the same time, a lot of the time I know as much as you do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I'm not asking you for a definitive ruling, Tom. Don't worry.
No. I know. I understand that. It's
talking of journalists getting loads of abuse on Twitter, Fabinho. What's the story? The English press. Let's euphemistically just say the English press adamant that United have no Fabinho interest. Press elsewhere not at all telling that story.
No.
What have you made of the whole Fabinho schmozzle?
What have I made? I have made that. If people ask me for my opinion, not that my opinion, means much, but my opinion is, which is why you brought me on here, I guess. My opinion is that I believe there is interest. Now, this is not information. Let me make this very clear. I do not have any information on this. This is just an opinion. Before I get bombarded on Twitter saying, who's your source? And even if I did have one, I would not tell you, because that defeats the object. This is something I'd never understand as well, as people saying, is your source reliable? So, well, otherwise it wouldn't be my source. But this is just my opinion. I believe they are interested. Now, I also believe that the way things are at Monaco is that they have both Timur Bakayoko and they have Fabinho. They have since sold neither of those players, but they have bought Yuri Tielemans from Anderlecht and Sueli Hermete from Lille. Those two players are maybe not ideal, but they are pretty much two players you can slot in for Fabinho and Bakayoko. Now, Monaco are in a position where they probably could sell both, but I think that ideally they would want to sell one, keep probably Fabinho, seeing as he's on a longer contract. His contract's until 2020 or 2021. He renewed, I think, 2021. I think he renewed for 5 years last year. So ideally they'd want to keep him, get rid of Bakayoko, selling him probably to Chelsea, allow Fabinho to be in that team this year in order to let both Tielemans and Meite settle in, get the bet, and then next year sell Fabinho. He'll be 1 year less on his contract. He starts 4 years, which means they can still get a lot of money for him. That's how I see it. Now, obviously, Monaco are still in a position where they don't need the money, but if someone came in with an offer they can't refuse, they will probably sell. Now, Bakayoko is probably going to Chelsea based on the latest reports. Obviously, that's dragging along, so things could change. But the latest has been, I think, that Chelsea are going to get Bakayoko. Fabinho could easily go, and they have the two replacements, but I think they want to keep him. And they definitely don't want to sell him to Paris Saint-Germain. I think they would not want to, having just beaten Paris Saint-Germain in Ligue 1, quite comfortably, I must say, surprisingly comfortably. The last thing they want to do is just give them one of their key players and just strengthen them some more, and then they're in a position where they, instead of building on this fantastic season they had, getting to the semis of the Champions League, winning the league, go back a few steps. And I think keeping Fabinho would allow them to keep that momentum going. They keep Mbappe. Yes, they've sold Bernardo Silva, but they keep hold of Lemar, keep hold of Mbappe. They managed to get Falcao to sign a new contract, which is very important. They kept their manager, which is incredibly important, seeing as he's the reason behind their success. I believe they also want to keep Benjamin Mendy, seeing as he arrived last year and he's young and they know that he can develop some more, and probably if he has another season like he did last year, sell him for even more than what, the 45 million that he would go for at this rate, which is why they're playing hardball. The latest from France on that one was that he's agreed to go to Manchester City, personal terms, and Manchester City are prepared to pay the 45 million euro that they believe he should go for, but Monaco are saying no, we want more. The one who I think could go is Sidibe, the right back that Manchester United should stay very well away from. They don't really need a right back, and he's not very good in my eyes anyway. But I believe they've bought a young right back, and they already have a ready-made right back in the club, so that would make sense that he would leave instead of Benjamin Mendy. So Monaco, building on this season, have the team to, carry on the momentum that they've gained, and I believe keeping Fabinho would be ideal. If it doesn't, if Manchester United come along or someone else come along and, throw 55 million euros, 60 million euros, which in this market no one will bat an eyelid, and they accept it, then he'll go. But I think the idea behind it is that they would like to keep him. And I believe Manchester United are interested. And there has been some, the English press haven't all been 100% adamant that Manchester United aren't in for him. There have been, so there's some interest there. But Matic, I think, for Mourinho would be the easiest one to get. Chelsea bringing in Bakayoko, allowed to replace a soon-to-be 29-year-old with a 22, 23-year-old, and they get 40 million for him. They can get Bakayoko for around the same, maybe a bit less. It's a good deal for them, and it's an easier one for Mourinho and Ed Woodward to do, which is why I think that one's being pushed to the English press more than the interest from Fabinho.
Okay, because that's great, because that was going to be my next question, because the thing that I haven't understood is the adamance on both sides of the argument with the Fabinho thing, because it's not like, it's respectable people saying that there's a link, but other people saying that they've been told exactly the opposite sort of thing.
Yeah, I think you've just got to think about where the sources for each journalist comes from. Now, a lot of the Manchester United, the reporters who cover Manchester United will have a source in or around Manchester United, someone who knows what's going on to a certain extent. Maybe that it's probably not going to be Ed Woodward directly, but someone who's around the club enough to hear what's going on. Just Ed Woodward ringing
except when it's literally Ed Woodward directly, and he just emails them all going, "We never wanted Griezmann anyway," and they all release the story at the same time.
Obviously, you've got to keep an eye out for these things. That if the same story comes from 7 different journalists within the space of 20 minutes, something's been said to them from the club to a certain extent. Official channels have said this is what you need to put out and we're not interested, or something like that. But if it's bits of information here and there, then you can probably guess that it's a source who is willing to talk, probably not reveal that much, but it's very easy to say, well, we're interested in Fabinho or we're interested in such and such player, and then it's the journalist's job to make that tiny bit of information into something much bigger and much more appealing to the fans. Now, you got to think that, for example, the English journalists will have someone in or around Manchester United. Now, someone like Mohamed Bouafsi, who is widely seen by a lot of people on Twitter as an incredibly reliable source, and he is a very good, very reliable source. He will probably get his information from Monaco or someone near around Monaco, or a lot of the time when some of these journalists are good friends. Of friends to a certain extent with the player, so they'll have direct access to the player himself. They could ask him a quick question, such and such interested, and say, I've heard from my agent that. For example, Nabil Jalit, who works for France Football, is a good friend of Riyad Mahrez. Now, whatever Jalit says, you can kind of guess that it's going to come from Mahrez or his camp directly. So now you've got to think about all these things. Di Marzio is a very special case in itself, in the sense that he knows, or he appears to know so much that I'm not quite sure how he manages it, because unless he is literally glued to his phone the entire time, I know he's got a lot of people who work for him and, do, like Fabrizio Romano does stuff for Sky Italia, which is basically Di Marzio. There is, stuff that comes in from other people, but Di Marzio seems to have fingers in pretty much every single pie there is in the transfer market, and I find that quite difficult to believe that he knows as much as he does now. He might do, but this is just skepticism, which is what we do at Sport Witness. And he has had some things that have not gone his way. For example, last year he was adamant that Manchester City were going to sign Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. That never happened. That kind of quickly got swept under the carpet, and people forget this kind of stuff because they just want what they want to hear. But you got to think where the sources of these journalists come from. So if it comes from France, you can kind of think that maybe it will come from the club or someone near around the club. Now Monaco could also be saying Manchester United are interested, so they can get other clubs interested. And if someone says, "Oh, Manchester United are interested, we should probably get in a bid now before they do." It's all a game.
The game is the game.
The game is the game. So, this is what we try and do at Sport Witness. We try and analyse all these things and, look at the shape of the team, like I just did with Monaco, and you're trying to think, where that club is at that time, what they need to go forward, if they want to build on this momentum, or if they want to, if a team has just finished 17th and conceded 58 goals, or maybe more, 70 goals in a season, and they have 5 centre-backs, and they are interested in centre-backs, they're probably going to get rid of the centre-backs that conceded 70 goals last season and bring in some new ones. Even though if they have 5, you just got to, take into account a lot of things, and that's what we try and do, keep a level-headed thing about it all. It's very difficult sometimes. As I said, I'm a fan, first and foremost, so I get excited about things. But
were you excited about Ivan Perisic?
I was underwhelming was a good way people put it. I believe that he is a very good player. He would bring a lot to Manchester United. He would bring direct football down the wings, which is, with someone like Martial and Rashford, you get to a certain point and they try and cut in. Very rarely do they just, try go for the cross and stuff like that. They'll try and cut in and, big B inside forwards. Now with Perisic, you have a very different kind of thing. He's very capable with both feet, which means they'd be able to cross with the left or cut in with his right, which kind of defeats the point of someone like Ashley Young, who is going to turn onto his right foot regardless of where he is on the pitch, or Valencia. So you have that kind of, gives that extra edge to his game. He would work incredibly hard up and down that left-hand side. Which is what Mourinho wants from his players. So I wouldn't, especially for the price of whatever Inter wanted, which was 50 million euros. It would have been an underwhelming signing at that price. But, people say, go get Ousmane Dembele. But Ousmane Dembele has just been to Dortmund and he's very happy there, just had a great season. He probably doesn't want to leave just yet. He probably wants to have another couple of seasons. It's not Football Manager. So obviously that works sometimes, but, like Mbappe, you can't just chuck money at a club and go, well, give me your player. We'd like to keep him for another season. Thank you very much. But even at that price, 50 million, I felt that, he's 28, I think. It's probably a lot of money, but Inter don't want to sell Spalletti, who's just become their new manager after they got rid of Stefano Pioli at the end of the season. He ideally would like, this is all from the Italian press, he ideally wants Perisic next season. The aim was that they needed to, because of failing FFP regulations 3 years ago, they needed to raise 30 million euros to balance their books in order to comply with this year's FFP so that they didn't face further punishment. Now, up until 2-3 days before that deadline, which was the 30th of June, they hadn't done that. The only whispers was Ever Banega going back to Sevilla, which they got around 9 million euros for, I believe. But the rest was and then suddenly they managed to get rid of 5 players I'd never heard of for about a combined of about 20 million euros and another player. They just about scraped it. So they were able to keep Perisic. And now the line from the Italian media is 50 million's kind of off the cards now. We want more because we don't have to sell him. So Manchester United, according to the Italian press, were playing a very clever game. Had it worked out, obviously now they look a bit like idiots, in the fact that they'd only made a bid of about 30, but somewhere between 30 and 40 million euros, depending on who was reporting it. I think that the bottom line was it was less than 35 million euros, and they just put it on the table and say, look, this is our offer for your player. You need the money. If you need to, if you can't comply with FFP, you know where to get the money from. And I think Edward would kind of, the idea is that Edward would left that there for them to just mull over, and in case they couldn't get the FFP money in time, they would just snatch that offer and he would get a player on the cheap for less than what they asked for. Obviously that didn't happen. They get to keep Perisic, and now they say, well, we don't need to sell him. He was up for 50 million up until that day. Now, only an exceptional offer, or I think they put it as out-of-market offer, which is basically an exceptional offer, would allow us to sell him to you, which will probably be somewhere between 60 and 70 million, which I don't think Perisic is worth. So that's where I stand on the Perisic situation. It's just it was a very complicated thing, and also trying to work out how they were going to raise that, 30 million before the deadline was. None of the newspapers in Italy really knew how they were going to do it until probably about the day before. So it was quite a tense situation for everyone involved. Maybe not Manchester United fans. A lot of them didn't want him or would have preferred someone else. But
yeah, that signing was a signing that just upset me. I was like, he's never got double figures in league assists, or certainly he hasn't in the last 5 years. I think he's only hit double figures for goals twice.
Yeah,
he does bring something. But Anthony Martial, that's like, especially if Morata comes.
Of course.
Where's Martial going to play? Like, we don't. I'm not having a team built around Perisic instead of Martial. That would just be miserable.
I don't think it would be built around Perisic. I think it would just be a case that Perisic would be the starting left winger.
Exactly.
I understand that point of view, but I also think that this season was very difficult for Martial in many different ways. There was all the personal stuff that's been well documented by social media and the French media, and also some of the tabloids, and it's still ongoing, which obviously can be very distracting for a player. It's also the fact that he came from Monaco on this huge transfer fee. Van Gaal, who was a bit in this kind of second season, I need to do something, otherwise I'm gone, and eventually he went, kind of chucked in this kid against Liverpool, and he scored this amazing goal that we all remember so well, and it all took off from there, and he had a fantastic season. Now then, off that season, he went to the Euros, didn't play much at the Euros, much to the disappointment of many Manchester United fans.
And France fans.
And France fans to a certain extent, yeah.
France fans who were paying attention and were screaming at their televisions saying, "Why are you doing this, Jean? We really need to stretch this defence. Why are you bringing... I know you love Gignac, right? But why are we bringing on Gignac?
Whoa. Let's not talk about the big man André Pierre Gignac just yet. That's a completely different thing. Yeah. But anyway, he hit the bar, should have scored, but he hit the bar in the final. Would Marcel have scored it? We'll see. Anyway, he had this 60-game season for Manchester United. He was 19, he's 20 at that stage, and he fitted well in what Van Gaal wanted to do. He was a very good player. And then Mourinho comes along, and we know what Mourinho's like. If you don't do what he wants, you don't play. Now, I think it took a lot of time for Martial to adapt to what Mourinho wanted from him. Martial has never been a hugely hard-working forward. He, uses his pace to attack, not to defend. And obviously, Mourinho wants someone to run around like Lingard does. Great off-the-ball movement. And Martial didn't do that. Now, that's why we didn't see Martial play. That's how I see it anyway. And also, I think he was just knackered. He didn't really have much of a holiday. He had come back for pre-season, maybe a bit later than everyone else, but he still didn't have that huge holiday, that gap that a lot of people had. Other players had to rest. And I think it was just that second season's, is it sophomore slump? And I believe that, there's no football for him this summer other than the pre-season. And I think it's just got to give him that time. Now, Perisic would have allowed him to take some of that pressure off what everyone expects from Martial, because everyone wants him to play well. And if he doesn't play, then people go, "Oh, Mourinho's not going to like it. He's going to sell him." But he's still very young. I know he's had a huge impact, but he is still very young. And I think having someone else on that wing that isn't Rashford, someone who we expect a lot of as well, having someone else down that left wing would have taken some of that pressure off Martial. Now, Perisic would not have started every single game because they offer two very different things. Depending on the team, you choose different players, all that stuff. Now, I think it would have helped. I think if we do get another left winger, it will help Martial get away from the limelight, be able to focus more, be able to not play as much as a young player should, to not burn out. We've all seen what's happened to Wayne Rooney. I know he's a specific case in that he's never really been the fittest of players in the sense that taking care of himself, unlike a Cristiano Ronaldo or Ryan Giggs or whatever. But you think of a player burning out far too soon because he's been playing constantly since he was 16. And I think you run the risk of, had Martial carried on having 60-game seasons, that would probably happen down the line. And I think that having someone like Perisic would allow him to take a step back, be able to improve his game and just be more impact, like have more impact whenever he comes on, rather than having this huge amount of pressure. If Perisic does well, you chuck on Martial and things could, you've also got that good option, and I think it would have helped. Now, obviously, a lot of fans just want to see Martial all the time, and I get that.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
but that's how I see it.
I could offer a lengthy counter argument at this point, but that's not what the people are here for. The people are here for transfer talk, not tactics talk.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
No.
Sorry.
I'm saying no. That all made sense. I'm just saying that my lengthy comeback about Martial FC can wait for the new season.
Just do it on the next podcast. Just say, well, you remember what Tom said. This is what I had to say at the time. You're wrong, Tom. And there you go. That's fine. And I'll listen to it and be able not to say anything to you back. So.
Talking of ridiculously underwhelming signings that many United fans would be just as happy if they happen or don't. Nemanja Matic, a story that hasn't gone away all summer. Is this just the press going, oh, he used to play for Mourinho, let's buy him, or is there something going on?
No, well, I think I said it in when we were talking about Fabinho. I think it's very much a case of it's an easier target to obtain for Manchester United. I think Chelsea were willing to sell. I know he's in his prime, and a lot of people will say, but I think 40 million, it's a lot of money. But obviously, you can still get 3-4 years out of him, and that kind of breaks down to 10 million a season, depending on how you want to look at it. But I think he's an easier target to get than Fabinho, and I just think that that's where it's come from. I think you feed, as I said, the Manchester United sources will say, well, he's very easy to get. This is who we want, and yeah, I think that's how it's happened. And obviously, some jumped the gun a bit, said that it was going to be last Tuesday. He was going to have medical. Obviously, that didn't happen. But it's all depending on how easy a transfer is done and all that stuff. So I think he's just the easy option for Mourinho and Ed Woodward. Chelsea want to sell if they bring in Bakayoko. Maybe that's why the Matic situation hasn't happened, because Bakayoko hasn't arrived at Chelsea yet. Now, the moment Bakayoko does arrive at Chelsea, then Matic is free to go. But obviously, if Bakayoko transfer collapses, Matic will stay, because Conte needs another midfielder to be able to play in his 3-4-2-1 formation with next to Kante. I think there's all these things to take into account in how clubs are run, and you've got to keep your team as strong as it is. And if you don't get one player, then you have to keep the player you have, or find someone else to then bring in. But I think until that midfielder is signed for Chelsea, Matic won't be free to leave just in case. And I think when we do get that signing that Chelsea wants in midfield, that's when the Matic story might pick up. Or if it takes too long for the Bakayoko negotiations to take place and Monaco get fed up with it, or Chelsea get fed up with it, it could be that Bakayoko is demanding far more than what Chelsea are willing to pay him. If someone gets fed up, then suddenly that player stays at Monaco, and, well, another player who plays next to him who's Brazilian could become available. Not going to name any names, but you know what I mean. It's all relative to each club situation and what they want to do with their team going forward. Now, Chelsea have to obviously strengthen. They had a great season, a surprisingly good season last year. Conte did very well. Qualified for next year, they've got Champions League football to think about as well. Not just a game a week. They've got two, maybe 3 games a week with cups and stuff in the space. I mean, by a week, I mean 7 days. And so there's all this to think about. You need more depth. You need more quality in depth. And yeah, that's where it comes in. So Manchester United have to think about. Obviously, they don't have to play Thursday nights anymore, which is a big help. But yeah, I think that's where we stand with Matic. That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah. So the one thing that we haven't talked about at all is outgoings. So we've got rid of anyone yet, have we? Have I missed someone? Have I forgotten someone?
No, Darmian's the likeliest to go to Italy from what I've been reading. Obviously, there's been a lot of chatter about Juventus wanting him. Roma, Inter wanted him a while back. I think that's kind of gone down a bit, but I know Roma were looking at him. I know their Mario Rui, who's one of their left backs, is considering to go into Napoli. So, they might need someone else in. I know Darmian's not left back, but he can play there, as we saw last season. The various levels of ability of being able to play there, but he can play there, so he's an option. Obviously, Juventus are losing. We've lost already Dani Alves, probably going to City. That's not confirmed, but looks like it. And they're looking at Danilo, Real Madrid, right back, back up for Carvajal. But they're also looking at Darmian. But the line over there from Italy, and I think it's the same line that we've had from England, is that Mourinho doesn't particularly want to sell, probably because of his lack of trust in Luke Shaw at this moment in time. And he can see, much like he did Azpilicueta, having Darmian there at left back, and maybe Darmian can grow and become Manchester United's Azpilicueta. Time will tell. But I think that was the one that came straight to mind when you said outgoings. Now there are others. I think Ashley Young, where whoever wants to pay 120,000 a week for Ashley Young can do it.
He's just staying forever. He's just gonna retire as an old man. He's gonna be like the manager by default. Then he'll be the groundskeeper when he gets too old to do that. He's never leaving.
I think Wayne is probably about to say.
So that's, I guess, with Lindelof coming in, that you would think we've got too many centre backs. So
yes.
One of them's got to go, right?
Yeah. And the one that everyone seems to be agreeing on leaving is Mr. Smalling,
right?
With Phil Jones staying.
That's the way round I'd do it, but
And then we have Marcos Rojo, who Mourinho seems to have a lot of faith in and played extremely well when he was not in crutches last season. And I think Phil Jones showed that he was very capable of playing. Now, he didn't play in the Europa League final. Not 100% sure why. I can't remember if he was 100% fit or not. Smalling played, and I thought did quite well. He
had a really good game. It was like his best game of the season.
I think it was very much a case of he played well because he got told just lump it forward as soon as you get it in your feet and try not to pass it out. I mean, Mourinho even admitted we tried to bypass the midfield as much as possible because of their pressing. So I think that's why he appeared to have a good game. I think he seems all right and a no-nonsense defender, but that's not how Mourinho ideally wants to play. I think ideally Mourinho, with the signings of Bailly and this year Lindelof, he very much wants a ball-playing defender in his team. Now, they're both good on the ball. Lindelof is very good on the ball. Bailly, not eccentric, but as eccentric is a way of putting it, but as energetic as he is, sometimes looks like he's going to miss the ball. Somehow claws a leg around to get the ball back. Erratic is the word I was looking for. There you go. Right. He looks like he's going to be very erratic, but somehow pulls it off. And I think that you've got the calming presence of Lindelof next to Bailly, and I think that will work really well next season. And I think you do need to get rid of someone. Now, I don't think Smalling is going to be short on offers. Obviously, Everton are now out of the question because they've signed Michael Keane. I think that would make sense that they sign Michael Keane instead of Smalling. I mean, I'm sure West Ham will probably want a defender, looking at who they've got in James Collins. Obviously they've got Reed, but if they want to play through at the back like I did the bits last season, they probably need someone else. So Smalling could be one of their options. And I'm sure there's someone else. West Brom, they seem to take players from Manchester United. Johnny Evans. Imagine Johnny Evans and Chris Smalling in defence. That would be all right. Yeah, I think that would go down well.
Reunited and
with Fletcher just in front of them.
No, he's gone. Darren Fletcher's gone.
Oh, of course he's gone Stoke, isn't he? Yes.
That's a weird transfer, but that's another conversation. Like West Brom and Stoke are basically one club. They're just they've just got very amorphous boundaries. West Brom and Stoke in my head.
You could have thrown Sunderland in there as well with the John O'Shea and David Moyes and.
So, have I missed anyone that we've been seriously, meaningfully linked with this summer?
I don't think so. I'm sure you'll get lots of criticism on Twitter for forgetting such and such name.
We don't deal in those spheres, Tom. That's not our game. Sorry. This is this is it's a highbrow enterprise. This,
so you don't get affected by trolls or anything. It's because you're always extremely pleasant. I, on the other hand, have had my moments where I've not been extremely pleasant, but it's. No, I think that's everyone. I'm just trying to think of all the positions that where we've been linked. I think midfield, Matic, we've done Fabinho. There's been talk of Semedo. I think Semedo would be, we're definitely keeping Valencia. Semedo can play left back. So that would also be another kind of, but that would also be a signing that would probably undermine Luke Shaw even more, if that's even possible at this moment in time, seeing he's basically José Mourinho playing for him. So, no, Semedo is available. Benfica all wants a fair chunk of money for him after the season he had. As I said, I don't tend to do the Portuguese press. That's mostly Lucas's job, but I tend to keep an eye on what's going on. But as far as I'm aware, that's kind of been a sporadic link of maybe Manchester United wants him, maybe not. I think it was far more prominent in January. The other one has been that everyone wants and gets super excited about is Renato Sanchez at Bayern Munich, who is apparently available for 30 million euros by Bayern Munich. I think their chairman came out and said that they probably want to give him a second season to see how he's adapted.
That would make sense.
I think it's very much a case of, well, we bought him under all the hype. It didn't quite work out. Let's give him a second season. If that doesn't work out, then we can sell him. And he's young enough to, still bring in a decent amount of money for them. And a lot of the transfer fee was based on bonuses anyway. So I think that works out for them. Give him another season, and maybe he'll be available next season. So I'm sure Manchester United fans will be praying that he has another poor season at Bayern Munich just so they can have him at Manchester United. But such is the way of cruelty of football fans. All
right. Well, Tom,
I think that about wraps it up. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed for giving us an hour of your time.
No problem.
Where can the people find you if they want to, offer you praise for this?
Obviously, at Twitter at THCoast. I think that's probably the only one. I've got a Facebook page, but I don't really use that. And obviously, I would probably get fired if I didn't say this, but for all your latest transfer news, please visit www.sportwitness.co.uk.
They do good work so long as you don't like hope and joy.
Yes, exactly. If you like to have your dreams shattered on a daily basis, please wake up every morning, open Sport Witness, and maybe just throughout the day, because obviously we update it, not just first thing in the morning and just stay in bed and miss work because your world around you has crumbled, but keep up to date during the day, and feel free to interact with me on Twitter. I try and reply to most people. Obviously, if you're just going to ask me announce Fabinho, or what do you think, any update on Fabinho, any updates that I do find will go on the website, but I'm more than willing to answer any questions, so please feel free to send me a message on Twitter.
Brill, thanks Tom, thank you for your time.
No problem, thank you very much for having me.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.